What if I told you there's a universal language out there, one that cuts through all the marketing hype and tells you the real story of pretty much any company on earth? It's not a secret code, it's accounting. And today, we're going to learn how to speak it.
I mean, think about it. We see the flashy product launches, right? We read these breathless headlines, and we hear all these big promises from CEOs. But how do we actually know if a company is doing great or just, hanging on? Where's the real story, the unvarnished truth? Well, the answer is in understanding a very specific kind of language. Now, let's just back up for a second. At its heart, a language is just a system of communication. It's how a community shares ideas, works together, and, well, tells its story. So picture this. Every business, from the little coffee shop on the corner to a giant global tech company, they're all part of this massive, interconnected community. And the one common language they all use to talk about what's really going on is accounting. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this thing. Let's talk about the grammar and the vocabulary of this language and why it's just so important. Okay, here's the official definition. Accounting is a system that records, summarizes, and, this is the key part, communicates financial information. And the whole point of this entire process, it's all about helping people make smarter, better informed decisions. And that brings up a really important point. This is not just bookkeeping, okay? Bookkeeping is about tracking where the money went. Accounting, that's the next level. It's about taking all that data and finding the real insights. It's what gives you that deep dive into a company's health, how it's performing right now, and even where it might be headed. So if accounting is a language, who's actually speaking it? And maybe more importantly, who's listening? Let's take a look at who's actually part of this conversation. It really breaks down into three main groups. First, you've got the insiders. These are the managers inside the company. They're using this stuff every single day to set budgets, keep costs in check, and see if they're actually making money. Then you have the backers. We're talking investors and lenders. They are laser-focused on one thing: returns, risk, and growth. And finally, you've got the regulators, like the government, who need this info for things like taxes and making sure everyone's playing by the rules. Okay, so we get what the language is and who's using it, but how do you actually sit down and read a company's story for yourself? Let's make this super practical and walk through a real-world example. We're going to use a company that's pretty much always in the news, Tesla. Now, the headlines about them can swing like crazy from one day to the next, right? But the company's financial reports, written in the language of accounting, they tell a much deeper, more consistent story. So, let's say you're thinking about investing. Here's how you do it. First, you go get their official financial reports. Step 2, you start digging into the key data. For a company like Tesla, you'd be looking at stuff like how much they're spending on research and development. That leads you right into Step 3, figuring out how serious they are about innovation. And once you put all that together, you can start to map out the company's actual growth trajectory, totally separate from all the hype. So what does all this reading actually get you? Well, it goes way beyond just the daily stock price. It shows you the company's real profitability. Like, is it actually making more money than it's spending? It shows you its liquidity, which is just a fancy way of saying, can it pay its bills? And it gives you a sense of its overall strategy and whether it can hold its own in a really tough industry. All right, let's zoom back out for a minute. We've talked about the what and the how, but let's wrap this up by focusing on why understanding this language is so incredibly important for, well, all of us. When you get right down to it, good accounting isn't just some nice-to-have thing. It is literally the backbone of a healthy economy. It's what makes informed decisions possible in the first place. It's the bedrock of running a company responsibly, and it's the only real path to sustainable growth. In the end, it all comes back to this one simple but really powerful idea. Accounting serves as the language of business. It's like the universal translator that lets money, ideas, and trust flow smoothly all around the world. And this is why it should matter to you. I mean, whether you're thinking about investing in a company or taking a job there, or even just buying their products, learning to understand this language is a superpower. It empowers you to look right past the advertising and see the true story that's unfolding behind the scenes. It's a seriously powerful tool for making sense of the business world. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. Now that you know the language, what stories will you start reading?